Single dad saved his drunk boss from trouble. The next day, she did something no one could believe. Mark never expected that night to change his life forever. As he watched his boss stumble out of the company holiday party, keys dangling dangerously from her fingers, he made a split-second decision that would set in motion a chain of events no one could have predicted. If you're wondering whether good deeds still get rewarded in today's world, this story might just restore your faith in humanity. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that will warm your heart and remind you that kindness still matters. It had been a particularly rough year for Mark Jenkins. At 38, he found himself raising his 10-year-old daughter Lily alone after his wife's sudden death 18 months ago. The grief still felt fresh some days, especially when Lily would ask questions about her mother that Mark struggled to answer without breaking down. But he pushed forward each day, working as a mid-level accountant at Westfield Financial, a job that barely covered their expenses but offered the stability they desperately needed. Mark's boss, Victoria Harrington, was known throughout the company for her ruthless efficiency and impossibly high standards. At 42, she had climbed to the position of Chief Financial Officer through sheer determination and brilliant financial strategy. Employees feared her cutting remarks and critical evaluations. Mark had managed to stay under her radar for the most part, quietly completing his work without drawing attention to himself. The annual holiday party wasn't something Mark particularly wanted to attend. Hiring a babysitter was an expense he could barely afford, but the event was essentially mandatory for anyone hoping to maintain good standing at Westfield. He arranged for Mrs. Peterson, their elderly neighbor, to watch Lily for the evening, promising to return by midnight. The party was held at an upscale hotel downtown, with an open bar that flowed freely throughout the night. Mark nursed a single beer, watching as his colleagues became increasingly uninhibited. Victoria, surprisingly, seemed to be drinking more than anyone. Mark had never seen her with anything stronger than sparkling water during business lunches, but tonight she was matching the sales team drink for drink. By 11, Victoria was visibly intoxicated, her normally perfect posture slumped as she leaned against the bar. When she announced she was leaving, Mark happened to be standing nearby. He watched with growing concern as she fumbled with her clutch, extracting her car keys with unsteady hands. "Ms. Harrington," he said, approaching her cautiously. "I think you might want to consider a taxi tonight." Victoria's eyes narrowed as she tried to focus on his face. "Jenkins, isn't it? The quiet one from accounting?" "Yes, ma'am. Mark Jenkins." "I'm perfectly capable of driving myself home, Jenkins," she said, her words slightly slurred. "I've only had a few drinks." Mark knew he was risking his job by persisting, but he couldn't let her drive in this condition. "I'd be happy to call you a car service. Or I could drive you home myself. I was about to leave anyway." Victoria looked like she might argue further, but then swayed slightly on her heels. "Fine," she conceded. "But I expect to see my car in the office parking lot tomorrow morning, understood?" "Of course," Mark agreed, relieved she hadn't fired him on the spot for his presumption. The drive to Victoria's upscale condominium was mostly silent, with Victoria staring out the window, occasionally providing directions in a clipped tone. When they arrived, Mark helped her to the door, making sure she got inside safely before driving her luxury sedan back to his modest apartment. Mrs. Peterson had fallen asleep on the couch, and Lily was thankfully sound asleep in her room. After paying the babysitter and seeing her safely home, Mark set his alarm for 5:30 a.m., knowing he'd need to take a bus downtown to deliver Victoria's car before work. The next morning was a struggle. Mark had barely slept, worried about the potential fallout from his actions. What if Victoria was embarrassed and decided to make his work life miserable? Or worse, what if she didn't even remember what had happened and accused him of stealing her car? He arrived at the office building just as the security guard was unlocking the doors. After parking Victoria's car in her reserved spot, he took the bus back home, got Lily ready for school, and then returned to work, arriving at his desk at his usual time of 8:45 a.m. At 10:30, Mark received an email that made his heart sink. Please come to my office immediately. Victoria Harrington, CFO. As he walked the long corridor to her corner office, Mark rehearsed explanations and apologies, preparing for the worst. Victoria's assistant gave him a sympathetic look as she waved him through the door. Victoria sat behind her immaculate desk, her expression unreadable. Close the door, Mr. Jenkins. Mark did as instructed, then stood awkwardly, waiting for the axe to fall. I understand you drove me home last night, Victoria said, her voice neutral. Yes, ma'am. You seemed. I was concerned about your safety. Victoria nodded slowly. And you returned my car this morning. Yes, ma'am. Sit down, Mr. Jenkins. Mark perched on the edge of the visitor's chair, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. I've been reviewing your personnel file, Victoria said, tapping a folder on her desk. You've been with us for 6 years. Your performance reviews are consistently above average, though not exceptional. You've never asked for a promotion or a raise beyond the standard annual adjustments. Mark remained silent, unsure where this was going. Your wife passed away last year. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you, Mark said, surprised she knew this personal detail. You have a daughter. Lily, is it? Mark nodded, increasingly confused by this line of questioning. Victoria leaned forward, her perfectly manicured hands folded on her desk. Mr. Jenkins, I'm not accustomed to being in anyone's debt. Last night, you potentially saved me from a serious accident, or at the very least, a DUI charge that could have damaged my career. I appreciate your discretion and your initiative. It was nothing, really, Mark said, relief washing over him. It wasn't nothing, Victoria countered. And I don't like owing people. So here's what's going to happen. Effective immediately, you're being promoted to senior financial analyst, reporting directly to me. The position comes with a 40% salary increase and better benefits, including comprehensive family health coverage. Mark stared at her, speechless. Additionally, Victoria continued, I understand from HR that you've never utilized our flexible work arrangement policy. As a single parent, you're entitled to adjust your hours to accommodate school schedules and childcare needs. I expect you to submit a proposed schedule by the end of the week. Ms. Harrington, I don't know what to say, Mark finally managed. Say you'll accept the position, Victoria replied. The company needs more people with your integrity and judgment, and frankly, your financial analyses have always been thorough. You've been overlooked for too long. Mark nodded, still stunned. Yes, of course I accept. Thank you. Good. Now, there's one more thing. Victoria opened her desk drawer and removed an envelope. This is personal, not from the company. It's a scholarship for your daughter at Westridge Academy. It's the best private school in the city, with an excellent support system for children who have experienced loss. My niece attends, and the education is exceptional. Mark's eyes widened as he looked at the envelope. Westridge Academy was well known, and completely out of his financial reach. Ms. Harrington, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't possibly. You're not accepting charity, Mr. Jenkins, Victoria interrupted. Consider it an investment in your daughter's future, which benefits us all. The scholarship is anonymous and covers tuition through high school graduation. All you need to do is complete the enrollment paperwork. Mark felt tears threatening and blinked rapidly to hold them back. Lily had been struggling in her overcrowded public school, falling behind as she dealt with her grief. This opportunity would change everything for her. I don't know how to thank you, he said quietly. Victoria's expression softened slightly. You already did, by preventing me from making a terrible mistake last night. She straightened in her chair, her professional demeanor returning. That will be all for now. I expect your first report on the Mendelssohn account on my desk by Friday. As Mark left Victoria's office, he felt like he was walking in a dream. The promotion alone would ease their financial struggles significantly, but the scholarship for Lily, that was beyond anything he could have imagined. Over the following weeks, Mark discovered there was more to Victoria Harrington than her intimidating professional persona. As they worked closely together, he learned that she had lost her own parents at a young age and had been raised by an aunt who sacrificed everything to give her educational opportunities. Her tough exterior masked a deep understanding of struggle and the importance of helping others when possible. 3 months after that fateful night, Lily was thriving at her new school. The specialized grief counseling program had helped her process her feelings about her mother in ways Mark hadn't been able to facilitate on his own. Her grades had improved dramatically, and she had made new friends who accepted her completely. Mark's professional life had transformed as well. Under Victoria's mentorship, his confidence grew, and his financial insights earned him recognition throughout the company. The flexible schedule allowed him to be present for Lily's school events and to create a more balanced home life. One evening, as Mark was preparing to leave the office, Victoria stopped by his desk. "Jenkins, I've been meaning to ask you something." "Yes, Ms. Harrington." "The company is hosting a charity gala for children who have lost parents. I thought perhaps you and Lily might like to attend as my guests. Your perspective would be valuable to the organization." Mark smiled. "We'd be honored." At the gala, Lily charmed everyone with her resilience and bright spirit. When asked to say a few words, she spoke movingly about how support and opportunities had helped her begin to heal. There wasn't a dry eye in the house as she thanked the kind people who help kids like me when they're sad. Victoria stood at the back of the room, watching with an expression Mark had never seen before, something like pride mixed with genuine emotion. When their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, she gave him a small nod of acknowledgement. That night marked the beginning of a different kind of relationship between Mark and Victoria. Not romance, both were too focused on their respective responsibilities for that, but a deep friendship built on mutual respect and understanding. Victoria became a mentor not just to Mark but to Lily as well, offering guidance and support as the young girl navigated growing up without her mother. 5 years later, Mark had been promoted to Director of Financial Strategy, leading his own team with the same compassion and fairness that had been shown to him. Lily, now 15, was at the top of her class at Westridge Academy and talking about studying finance in college, inspired, she said, by both her father and Aunt Victoria. Victoria herself had softened over the years, though she remained formidable in the boardroom. The company's culture had gradually shifted under her influence, placing greater emphasis on work-life balance and supporting employees through personal challenges. At the company's 20th anniversary celebration, Victoria surprised everyone by announcing a new initiative, the Second Chance Foundation, dedicated to providing educational and career opportunities to single parents and their children. The foundation would be funded primarily by the company but would also accept private donations. Sometimes, Victoria said in her speech, a single act of kindness can change the trajectory of a life. And sometimes, being on the receiving end of that kindness can change you in ways you never expected. Her eyes found Mark's in the crowd, and they shared a moment of understanding that needed no words. As the years passed, the foundation helped hundreds of families find their footing after loss or hardship. Mark eventually took over its management, bringing his personal experience and financial expertise to expand its reach nationwide. The story of how it all began, with a drunk boss and a concerned employee on a winter night, became something of a company legend, though few knew all the details. Mark and Victoria preferred to keep the focus on the work they were doing rather than how it started. But sometimes, when asked what inspired her dramatic shift from cutthroat executive to compassionate leader, Victoria would simply say, "I learned that true strength isn't about never needing help, it's about having the courage to accept it when offered, and the wisdom to pass it on when you can." And that, perhaps, was the greatest lesson of all, that a single moment of human decency could spark a chain reaction of goodness that continued to spread, touching countless lives along the way. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Remember that even the smallest acts of kindness can have profound impacts that ripple outward in ways we might never imagine. Sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to do the right thing, even when it's difficult, to change not just one life but many. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that goodness still exists in the world, and that sometimes, it finds its way back to us when we least expect it.